straight people. What burning questions do you have about the LGBTQ community? Why do asexuals want to invade Denmark? I'm nervous. There are estimated to be over 70 million asexuals in the world, which means that we can easily overpower the Danish military. Don't worry, we won't hurt the citizens. And we'll make it a great country. Edit. I know Denmark is already a great country. I've been there once. Loved it. And in general I know it's a good country. Close Ted B guy here. I don't know anyone who would give me grief over it. But is it weird that I just have no interest in coming out? I mean, I'd obviously tell family and friends when required if I was to start dating a guy, but unless I had to I just prefer to keep it to myself. You don't need to come out. Both my parents are bi. They are in a monogamous, hetero relationship and have been married for 32 years. I only learned they were bi when I was in my teens and we were watching a documentary about bisexuality together. They never talked about it before that point and have rarely mentioned it since. And they don't need to because it doesn't significantly affect their lives. Can I be gay without liking sex? I had moments when I was younger about wanting to be with a person, but just that male to male sex turns me off or weirded me out. Absolutely, you could be gay and asexual if you're romantically attracted to the same sex, but not sexually attracted to anyone. You could also be homo-romantic and heterosexual if you're romantically attracted to the same sex, but sexually attracted to the opposite sex. Lesbians, do you also find dating women hard? I know my gay buddies always complain that it's hard to find a solid relationship. So, I'm just wondering what your dating gripes are. Yes, absolutely. Dating pool is very small. You can't approach strangers because they could be straight and no one knows who should make the first move. According to my lesbian and bi women friends, the dating scene in any city for women attracted to women is always incredibly claustrophic. Everyone is someone else's ex and has drama with some other person. Finding a new partner with no pre-existing baggage is like finding a unicorn eating a pile of 4-leaf clovers. Do you ever feel nervous when you compliment a guy's looks or flirt with them because you think they might be straight and get super angry at you? I used to be. I still don't flirt unless I know they're not straight. But if a guy has a nice haircut or a cool shirt or hat or mask or whatever, I'll say something. Brightens their day. I love when people compliment my wardrobe. After all, edit for all the people who are wondering about the sort of guys who would get their hackles up at a compliment from another guy. Personal anecdote. I grew up in the southeastern US. 90s zeros. Very conservative area. Very close to Alabama. Very homophobic. Like heck yeah. Matthew Shepard got what was coming to him homophobic. So, those sorts of guys. Lot of us LGBTQ folks gotta develop defense mechanisms to get by. Do you feel like it's genuinely getting better or heading in the right direction regarding equality and it just being considered as normal or regular as any other relationship or lifestyle? In my country I think the shift is definitely more positive towards acceptance. Teenagers now just don't care what you identify as. When I came out my teenage sisters were just like yeah, and then told me about their friend's identity and their own. It was a normal conversation, not weird or hushed. Is the Q part of LGBTQ used in an attempt to retain ownership of a potential slur? I always thought that word was a slur, so don't really feel that comfortable using it. From my understanding, it started as a reclaimed slur and has now grown into an umbrella term for any people that aren't cisgender heterosexuals. But if you still feel like there are negative connotations attached to it and don't want to use it, then that's completely fine. For lesbians, bisexual women, I don't know if that's the right term. Sorry, how do you know you're sexually romantically attracted to women versus just interested in being friends? Because whenever I see a woman I think is attractive, I honestly can't tell if I'm sexually attracted to her or if I just want to be like her. LOL. Edit. Thanks so much for the responses. It's been really fun and enlightening to read about everyone's experiences. Definitely comforting to know a lot of people have this dilemma too, regardless of orientation. Peas, I feel like I'm definitely biromantic. cannot decide on bisexual because I really cannot imagine the sex without experiencing it. For me, a lesbian, it was more like the way I imagined a relationship between a man versus a woman. With a man it seemed gross and unpleasant, but with women it felt good and fun. It can also be, when do you see a pretty woman? How do you feel? Do you feel the same way as you would when you see a handsome man? Thanks for sharing. Imagining a relationship with a woman doesn't really gross me out. My initial reaction to when I see a person I think is attractive is mostly wow, he's hot. I've tried imagining having sex with men versus women, but I can't do it with women because I have no experience. But sometimes with women, and this might sound pervy, but I swear I keep all this just in my head. My mind wanders and I try to imagine them naked just because I find women's bodies generally more appealing than men's, if that makes sense. How did you figure out that you weren't straight? Cause I've been having a lot of mixed feelings of my own, and I'm not sure how to really feel. I'm a guy. I always had the feeling I was different, but didn't really know what it was that was different about me. Looking back, there were a couple early moments of clarity that I kind of ignored at the time because I didn't know what they meant. Then puberty hit. It was crystal clear then. I was into guys and only guys. And since it was the mid-80s, I was like, well, shit. I work in behavioral health, though not trained specifically in BH. I'm on the public health side. Think destigmatizing BH issues and suicide prevention. But I also have experience in sexual and general health issues. As a community health minded person, what's something we as public health or community members as a whole can do better to support LGBTQI community health issues that I as a straight man might not fully grasp? Edit. Good lord, I woke up to lots of responses. Lots of responses, my goodness. Thanks so much everyone for the feedback. I've been working in the field for a while and do most of what was said already, but the reinforcement is super helpful because it's not my lived experience, it's yours. Please know that your local clinic or community health workers, surveyors, front desk staff, peer group leaders, etc. really do care about your situation a fair amount of the time, and that things are changing. But healthcare is a bitch and a half to steer. On the public health side, most if not all of us want you all to be healthy and happy, so please reach out if you are ever going through a tough or scary time. As a B guy, please don't treat us with kid gloves. We're not special, we're just normal people. Offer standard tests. We are at higher risk and maybe too shy to ask on our own. Don't excuse poor behavior just because someone is LGBT. Some LGBT folk are bad people just like straight folk. Don't give them a pass. I think it's more conversations and communication. I don't mind a difficult conversation, honesty, having risks pointed out. But my experience as a gay guy has been kind of the opposite, where every time I feel run down it's so better to do an STD screen without bothering to ask if I've even had sex since the last one. There also seems to be a feeling like I wouldn't just be honest about it. So I'm a rural B guy. It's rare that I bump into others like myself, but it's such a relief when I do. Being rural and B is interesting, I'd say. There's not that big of a gay scene, and it's still a bit shunned sadly. I've never been to a city and experienced the culture, but can safely say I like dick and I like pussy. I told my dad this, and he just laughed and called me greedy and good for me. He liked my first boyfriend as well. Good man. Anyway, I'm rambling. I guess my question is, are all these labels important? Honestly, I don't really understand it too much. I'm just like, let people love who they want to love. Do we need to put everyone in these neat boxes? Not everyone needs labels, but some people find comfort and community in them when seeking out people with similar experience, especially when surrounded by people you struggle to relate to. Having a term or label can help with that. That being said, I think it's a problem when labels become someone's whole personality. My 15-year-old daughter came out to us a month ago. How do I best support her as her dad, knowing that her life will have additional challenges that I'm not experienced in? Many of my best friends throughout my life are LGBTQ, and I'd hope that I had been, and still am, a supportive and loving friend, but wasn't necessarily in the role to be their shoulder to lean on or a mentor. With my daughter, I want to be her rock. I want to be able to give her comfort that I will do anything to help if things are tough. Perhaps this is the same as being a supporting father in any child's upbringing. However, I know she'll have more challenges. Am I overthinking this? I just want to be the best dad for her. Have you ever been wondering how to translate near pronouns they them into gendered languages like German etc? My mind always gets a blue screen while thinking about this. There's no easy way. I'm bilingual and thought about this for Welsh. There isn't even a solid gender neutral pronoun in Welsh. There's NHW which can translate into they, but with how different both languages is this can just feel really clunky. Some multilingual people I know use their English pronouns in the other languages sometimes, but there is no good solution as of yet. Why is there so much biphobia in the community? Genuinely wondering because I consider myself bi. Unfortunately, a lot of people seem to think that bisexuals are individuals who are too afraid to fully come out of the closet, so they still have one foot into straight territory. Others take it as a personal attack that you're being disloyal to one or more of the genders you're attracted to, and you are apparently only allowed to choose one side. It's rather disheartening and disgusting to see. I'm sorry for any bisexual people, including yourself, that have to experience such behavior from others, whether it's from straight individuals or others in the LGBT community. No matter what anyone else says, you and any other bisexual who may be reading this are valid. I think my ex-girlfriend could really have done with reading this. She is bi. I'm a straight man and I didn't really understand the issue. Unfortunately, even though she'd previously been in a relationship with a woman, she received a lot of derogatory remarks from friends within the community. They accused her of going back into the closet and worst of all, one of them, just an utter dick to be honest, refused to acknowledge our relationship to the point of at one point inviting her to drinks that turned out to be a blind date with one of his lesbian friends. It never much bothered me, but that particular incident really bothered her because she really did begin to believe she was doing something wrong. It's probably relevant that this was when we were 21 and so not as confident in ourselves, and her friends were still immature, but still, there was nothing wrong with being in a loving relationship where we could both talk about hot ladies that shit slaps. It's not the reason we broke up directly, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a regular issue she brought up to me, which means she must have been thinking about it more than I heard. Edit. I just wanted to say, this all came in the form of backhanded remarks or jokes that weren't really jokes, as well as the occasional drunken rant. She wasn't just being cussed out 24/7. What's it like to be asexual? I obviously know roughly the idea, but just cannot imagine not having a sex drive, as it occupies my brain a lot. It actually sounds like quite a relief. Does the term transvestite still exist? I haven't seen anyone referred as that for a long time. I always think they or them sounds really impersonal. Are gender non-conforming people generally happy with this term though? Is a transgender male a man who wants to change genders, or a woman who has changed genders to a man? And vice versa. I'm really sorry if any of these come across as insensitive. I'm really just trying to educate myself so I don't make any more missteps in the future. Edit. Wow. So many insightful and helpful replies so quickly. Thanks so much everyone. Genuinely learning from these. Edit. This is totally cringeworthy, I'm sure. But can I just say, I'm overwhelmed by the genuine, honest replies without anyone criticizing or judging. Thank you so much everyone. I have read every reply, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to help me become more educated and aware. Edit. 3. So, thanks to you guys, I now know that being asexual does not mean that you have no sex drive, and is an enormous spectrum of different and unique feelings and perspectives. Transvestite is largely outdated and considered transphobic in many circles, and is largely to do with a kink. That pronouns are personal, and that you should always ask what a person prefers. That they or them not appearing specific can actually be a big relief for some people. And that I was mistaken in my initial comment to say about changed gender, that any trans person is the gender they identify as from birth. I hope this mostly reads okay, and I really feel that you guys have helped me move a little bit more towards understanding some of these incredibly complex issues. It has been so interesting to me reading your own experiences and analogies, which have really given me some clarity. Thank you everyone. An analogy I really love to describe asexuality is to imagine if you were suddenly transported to a world where everything was the same, except when people are sexually attracted to each other, instead of having sex, they go bowling. So you, having just been dropped into this world, could have had any kind of relation to bowling. You could be a professional bowler. You could work at a bowling alley. You could just see it as a fun thing to do sometimes, if your partner suggests it. But you wouldn't really think much of doing otherwise. You could dislike bowling because you hate the way the bowling floor squeaks under your shoes. You could just see bowling as another activity you could do. But wouldn't you rather go biking or play laser tag instead? In this new world, you would be considered asexual regardless of your interest in bowling. Because no matter where you stand on bowling, you will never look at your spouse or someone attractive and immediately think, damn, you know what I really want to do right now? I'd really like to take them bowling. You're not going to dedicate a solid chunk of your attention towards specifically envisioning your partner in bowling shoes hitting a strike. Unless you're into that. I don't know. So in the same analogy, aces can have any affiliation with sex. They can love to have it, feel repulsed by it, be a sex worker, feel utterly indifferent about it, the whole spectrum. They can love people romantically and have long, fulfilling relationships. The only thing absent is that innate desire to have sex with a specific person they are attracted to. Hope this helps. It's definitely a really strange concept to grasp, especially since romantic and sexual attraction are often confused as one. Is it difficult coming out of the closet? Like, for very religious families. I'm a bisexual Hindu from a very religious family. Coming out is a goddamn nightmare. Half my family is explicitly homophobic. I don't want to know about the other half. I'm out to a relative who is closer to my age and super supportive. And it still was nerve-wracking, even though I knew he was an ally beforehand. Hinduism isn't even homophobic. Indian families just tend to be like that. What do you think about Pride moment when every company changing their logo to rainbow? I personally have two different opinions that coexist in my brain. Or it's nothing but transparent virtue signaling, meant as a marketing ploy. These companies do not truly care and often are actively harming the LGBT community behind the scenes. Be the fact that huge corporations feel confident enough that their pride messaging will garner a favorable public opinion to go through with it is a great litmus test for how society as a whole is starting to warm up to the whole concept, and that in itself is heartening, even if the companies themselves are focused solely on profit. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.